Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. I am so excited for today's video, guys, because just like we did, 1 or 2 months ago on the channel, talking directly to the Raid Shadow Legends developers over at Plarium in Ukraine, we get a list of their favorite nukers in the game. I don't know about you guys, but I love hearing this straight from the proverbial horse's mouth, right? So developers, you made the game, you designed the game. Now tell me who your favorite champions are. For whatever reason, it interests me. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Let's go ahead and jump into their favorite nukers. So we asked the entire Plarium Raid Shadow Legends team, who is your favorite nuker in the game? Some of the answers will not surprise you. Others definitely will. Here we go. All right, guys, so let's start out with the Diamond. The Diamond is a guy that a lot of you guys already are acquainted with. He is one of the influencer managers for Raid Shadow Legends, the guy who actually went to all the employees and got this information, kind of put it all together for yours truly. So his favorite nuker in the game is Candrafon, and he gives a little bit of a backstory. He said, Candrafon was my first Lego in the entire game, and I always believed in him. I'm a big fan of the Lovecraft style, so visually he's also my favorite champion in the game. And I gotta say, dude, like, he's a champion that we all didn't really look at a lot until he was actually buffed. Now we look at all the time in the arena, and man, he does have a really cool kind of Lovecraft-esque look to him. Coincidentally, I actually live right near where H.P. Lovecraft grew up and where he died as well. Kind of a very sad life, not to bring down the tone of the video. On the A1, it is Punish Hubris. Attack one enemy, place an extra hit if the target is under any buff. On the A2, attacks all enemies, grants an extra turn, and resets the cooldown of On the Hunt skill if this attack kills an enemy in Butcher's Glee. On the A3, On the Hunt, place a Perfect Veil, an increase attack, increase speed buff, and an increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. And his passive is From the Shadows. Damage increases by 40% when attacking under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. Receives 40% less damage when under Veil or Perfect Veil. And also boosts this champion's turn meter by 15% each time this champion receives damage while under Veil or Perfect Veil. It does not work if this champion is the only ally alive on the team. And the active effect is place a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn each time an enemy's turn meter is filled. This buff cannot be removed. Man, they gave him a huge buff, guys, and he is a maniac. He's a monster now, especially this Butcher's Glee. If he's under Veil, which he basically always is because of that passive, it does insane damage. Definitely one of the best. Went from one of the worst nukers, one of the worst champions overall in the game, to one of the best champions. Certainly meta right now inside the arena in Candrafon. That was the Diamond's choice. Going with another legendary, next up is Cirilla. Cirilla, the community manager. You see her all the time in the forums, the Discord, everywhere in Raid Shadow Legends. Her favorite nuker is Biggin. And I have to say, man, Biggin, for those of you who are really OG viewers, going back to like my very first videos, Biggin is the very first legendary champion I ever pulled inside Raid Shadow Legends. So he's close to my heart as well. And this dude is a beast. I mean, look at this guy. I'm scared of him right now on my screen. Golly, he's a monster. A1, he has an AoE attack, providing the first attack is critical on the head splitter. He has an AoE on the A2 on forward charge. This is his biggest multiplier, his biggest nuke in his kit. However, his A3 actually hits twice, so overall more damage usually on the A3. But anyway, forward charge, attacks all enemies, has a 45%, make it a 50%, make it a 45% if I can add, chance at putting a stun debuff for 1 turn. Also has a 65% chance of placing a decreased accuracy for 2 turns. So the stun on the AoE on the 3 turn, crazy multipliers. Yeah, there's no doubt why Cirilla likes this champion so much. And on Molten, Slag is A3 on a 5 turn cooldown when booked, attacks all enemies 2 times, again, very hard hitting, not as much as forward charge, but still it's attacking 2 times. And my favorite part about it is decrease the turn meter by 25%, has a 30% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns as well. All about that turn meter on the Molten Slag, while usually killing everybody. Usually decreasing turn meter doesn't matter unless it's against a boss, because usually he's just wiping the entire team on the Molten Slag. So that is Sorilla's favorite nuker in the game. So Valkyrie is cheating again, just like she did in the last video. She's chosen 2 favorite nukers for today's video. Skullcrown is her overall favorite. She says it's her one love, but then she picks another love. So Valkyrie, another community manager for Raid, picks Skullcrown. What's not to love? She says, this is my one love, an AoE on the A1, extra hit if the targets have more than 50%, and then on the AoE again on the A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. You guys know Skullcrown. She has that annoying unkillable unless it's on your side of the arena, and then you love it. And she has, speaking of arena, she has the increased speed in all battles by 23%. She's also a companion champion to Sinesha, giving her that nice revival that is actually incredibly useful, especially if you put her in like a stun set in faction wars with Sinesha in Night Revenant. Anyway, her other choice is actually going to be Foley. Foley really handy because of his sealed fate. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived, and with all the revivers right now inside the arena meta, Foley is a nuker of choice for a lot of players out there. So Foley also has and this hits pretty hard too, the sealed fate on his A2 4 times at random. Each hit has a 45% chance when booked of landing that newly buffed, or not really newly, a few months ago buffed leech debuff as well. And then has one enemy 4 times on the A1. It has a 25% chance of placing the decreased defense strong version for 2 turns. Those are Valkyrie's choices. So next up is Juliana, or Juliana, I think Juliana, chooses Ethos, a Void Affinity High Elf champion. A lot of legendaries, Plarium employees. Do you guys have any secret sauce? You guys have the odds stacked in your favor on those shard pulls? Conspiracy theory tin foil hat turning on right now. But Ethos is actually a legendary I do not have here on the list. The first champion that I don't own. I wish I did. He has a chance of granting an extra turn on his A1. On his A2, attacks all enemies 3 times. Each hit would be nice, but places a weaken debuff for 2 turns as well, and that's a guaranteed placement on, albeit the weak version of weaken, on Outburst. And this Extinguish Life, well, that's a very appropriate name for this A3 ability. Attacks all enemies, and the attack is always critical, no big deal on a 4-turn cooldown. Extinguish Life puts out a ton of damage. He has a very high attack, base attack at 1608, so multipliers are good as well, and of course that scales incredibly well when building out Ethos. So Ethos is the champion of choice for Juliana on the team. So next up is Sasha, and Sasha chooses Errol, who is a very, very strong single target damage dealer, can one-shot basically anybody thanks to the negation ability, right? On a 3-turn cooldown, steals all buffs from the target enemy, then attacks the target, has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit. On Helm Breaker, attacks one enemy 3 times, has an extra 30% chance of inflicting a critical hit, and each hit has a 50% chance to ignore defense as well, again on a 3-turn cooldown. So not an AoE nuker, but Errol is certainly a very, very strong and capable single target, one-shot killer, right, on your team. And Sasha goes on to say, Errol was, again, my favorite one-shot champ, and also the first legendary I pulled. It's funny, huh, that we have this affinity towards the first champion that we pull in the game. I'm the same way, again, with my biggin, even though he is, let's be real, he's a better nuker than Errol. But it's hard to compare the two in AoE versus a single target damage dealer. Let's go on to the next champ. So next up, both Boris from the game team and Roma from the game team, or Rama, both chose Trunda Gilt Mallet. So Trunda, can you blame him? She is the best nuker in the game in the opinion of yours truly and a lot of other people out there. She's just so incredible, especially in the arena, but obviously if you want to utilize the HP burn and the stun on Forge Rhythm, her A3, incredibly hard-hitting ability. It can be insane in basically any dungeon, as well as especially spiders with that HP burn and the stun. Also adds that extra versatility to this amazing ability. It is on a 5-turn cooldown, but it hits 2 times providing you don't land the stun. So what a lot of people, myself included, do is they build her with no accuracy. We don't want her to land the stun. We want her to land 2 100,000k hits on these enemies inside the arena. You put her in Savage Gear, put her in Helm Smasher, and she's dishing out even more damage. And then on the A2 Cloak of Ages, hey, this one hits like an absolute truck as well. Attacks one enemy and then attacks all other enemies with a second hit, dealing 60% of the damage inflicted from the first hit. Do insane damage on that one. And then Golden Mallet, one enemy 2 times, and has a 60% chance of landing that stun as well when booked. Her passive is this champion's resistance increases by 10 for each stun debuff this champion places on enemies, stacks across rounds, and can grow up to 100, which is nice because dwarves have a higher resist than your average champion anyway at 80, so you can build that extra resist onto this champion. This champion's speed also increases by 5 for each enemy currently under HP burn debuffs, and again, you guys can already see that automatic synergy between her and a great Spiders team as well, on top of her being an all-around arena beast nuker. And look at that just great helmet she has. And I think that, was it like Hell Hades or something, had a video of her being like, the thumbnail was just this shot, and it was like, it's leg day. I mean, she put some time in the gym. She never skips leg day. Trunda never skips leg day. Let's go on to the next champion. So next up, this one really surprised me, guys. We had 2 Plarium employees, Sergey and Anastasia, both picked Fu Shan as their favorite nuker in the game. So Fu Shan, man, I mean, listen, his attack is pretty high at 1443, decent to build up, but I never thought of him as like an OP nuker in the game. He has Frightful Claws on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, also has that 45% chance of landing the stun, actually a 35% chance of landing the stun, my bad on that. So, I don't know. But does that do that much damage? Am I crazy on this one, guys? Let me know in the comments. He has 4 times at random. Each hit has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns. I mean, on a 4-turn cooldown, if this was an AoE attack instead of a 4-time at random, I'd like him a lot more. But the thing about this champion is, and this is what Sergey says about this champion, he's amazing for his AoE skills and his massive stun. In one battle, it can be enough to stun 3 or 4 enemies from the rival team in the arena. His A3 skill with decreased defense makes him a complete killer. I use him in the arena and as my man farmer in campaign. 2 employees love Fu Shan. I gotta give him another. I have him built out. I used him in Lizardman 21 in my Faction Wars team, so he was definitely a big part of my team because of that stun. But I always compare him to SOD, right? Still the Drakes, even though he's an attack-based champion, she's a defense-based champion, but she has the stun. You know what? I was wrong about this, because this is a 35% chance stun, but it's a 2 times, and each hit has that independent 35% chance. Certainly a more consistent stun than we're giving him credit for. However, SOD has the same exact ability, essentially, in terms of the odds of landing that stun, and then she has the revival. Her damage is based on defense, and she's a more free-to-play friendly champion, because everybody gets her provided they play the game long enough. Maybe I shouldn't even be comparing these 2 champions. Maybe it's tomato here. Increase ally speed in all battles by 24%. Nice aura on this champion. Nice base speed at 106. Maybe I'll revisit Fu Shan after 2 Plarium employees gave him their highest recommendation. So Ivan from the team, some of these employees gave a few just sentences as to why they love these champions, and Ivan just says Zargala, killing it. He just says killing it, and I think that's pretty apropos for Zargala, an Orc Force champion. She has obviously crack armor, which is her main ability, but it's really nice to have that devastate and a really nice synergy between the A2 and the A3 on this champion. Attacks all enemies 3 times. Not crazy multipliers, but you have to factor in she's hitting them 3 times, right? So even if she's doing, whatever, 15, 20k, you're putting out like 45, 50,000 damage or more on this AoE attack. And after the first hit, she also has a very consistent 75% chance times 2 of landing the decreased defense on all enemies for 2 turns. So she's a debuffer and a nuker all in one kit. A base attack at almost 1400. Devastate is really cool, right? It's on a 2-turn cooldown when booked. Attack 1 enemy. It instantly activates the crack armor, her A3 skill, if the target is killed. And it has pretty decent multipliers. So basically you kill somebody, boom, immediately an AoE times 3 attack from Zargala. There's no No surprise why Zargala is a lot of people's favorite debuffers for Dragon Slayer or just all around kind of nuker on your team. She's a great champion to have. All right, so Eugen from the team picks Bloodgorge. Bloodgorge, a great champion who's kind of crept his way into the arena meta, into the meta in the game right now as well. I would say maybe second on in terms of arena legendaries that we see more often than we did, you know, forever. Behind Candrafon, who's far and away above and beyond number one, it would be Bloodgorge actually, because his A3, and he says his A3 skill will ignore defense and block revive. It's just amazing. And I agree. Attack one enemy 2 times. I don't have this champion, by the way, but I wish I did, right? Has a 75% chance of placing a decreased defense on his A1, not bad. On his A2, a Raging Beast attacks all enemies and puts one of each target skills on cooldown on a 3-turn cooldown. That's actually nice to have as well for the arena, because some, you know, a lot of champions in the arena only have 2 skills. Look at like Valkyrie, for example. It's a nice kind of anti-Valkyrie move on Raging Beast. And then A3, Decapitate, a very appropriate name yet again, on a 4-turn cooldown. We already talked about it. This is his big money-making ability. Attacks one enemy, ignore 100% of defense. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. That is Bloodgorged. So Valerie's favorite champion is actually Ray. I just pulled Ray myself, and I gotta say, I'm not really going to be using her, only because I do have a lot of the other nukers we talked about. You know, she's a great champion though, nonetheless. On her Banish, her A3 attacks all enemies, removes all buffs, and then has a 70% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on a 6-turn cooldown. Banish is amazing. It has the highest multipliers of all her skills, granted on a 6-turn cooldown, but it's really nice not to just have that consistent freeze, but also removing buffs. Really, really solid. It would be nice though if she removed all the buffs before she did the damage, right? Attacks all enemies, then removes all the buffs. It'd be nice if she removed all buffs, then attacked all enemies. But anyway, on the A2, Arcane Wave attacks all enemies, inflicts 50% more damage against targets under debuffs. A very solid damage dealing ability as well, and she has an AoE on every single ability, similar to, again, Biggin, who we talked about earlier. Attacks all enemies, and then has a 50% chance of placing the strong version of decreased defense for 2 turns. Really solid to have a 50% decreased defense on the A1 on this champion. Her multipliers are really good. Her base attack is all right for an attack-based champion. However, her defense is really solid at 1222. So that is Ray. And last but not least is Vitaly. And Vitaly, man, this is 2 Plarium videos in a row where they have chosen Horden as one of their favorite characters, man. Do I need to max out Horden, guys? Be real with me in the comments. Do I need to max this guy out? I mean, what the heck, dude? They're giving him a lot of love. And in case you missed, actually, I'm not gonna, if you want to check out the other Plarium video, this is what we call a tease in the biz. I'll link it to you guys in the show notes below, because we found out some very interesting information, kind of a backstory about this champion. Anyway, on his A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. Grants an extra turn if the target is killed. Nice to have that. Relentless indeed on the Relentless strike. On Bloodletter, attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns, heals his champion by 10% of the damage inflicted, and that is on a 4-turn cooldown. That better deal a lot of damage, does it? On the A3, Burning Hatred places an increased attack, an increased crit rate, and an increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns, and then grants an extra turn. That's on a 5-turn cooldown. So that's it. There's no AoE attack. It's just, this Bloodletter must be doing a lot of damage for 2 Plarium employees to choose Horden as one of their favorite champions in the game. He says, Horden totally changed my game when I pulled him. I'm assuming, again, probably the early game, but very interesting. He has the chance of kind of the built-in Relentless on the A1 if a target is killed. And then the A2, just a 4-turn cooldown, has a chance of decrease attack and the heal, but that's it. Man, I can't get behind, I can't wrap my head around why Horden is getting so much love from Plarium. They must know something I don't know, but they are the developers, and I want to take the opportunity to thank all of the developers for giving their picks at Favorite Nukers in today's video, guys. If you have a category, I'm just going to annoy the developers until they're sick of answering my questions. So if you have a category for maybe December, I'll go ahead and ask them again. Maybe support champions, maybe favorite non-legendary champions in the game. This one was granted a little bit legendary heavy, no doubt about it. Guys, let me know if you have any ideas. And more more importantly, let me know who your favorite overall nuker in the game is. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the content here, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. We just hit 50,000 subscribers last week or the week before. Thank you so much for your support, guys. I really appreciate it. And as always, take care, guys.